Good morning. My name's Chris Brown, an analyst with Morgans Financial. I'm here this morning with Greg Hall, the CEO of Alligator Energy Uranium. There are 430 nuclear reactors in operation now. There are 50 odd under construction. That's under construction, not people talking about building. 22 or 27, depending on the numbers, are in China. But nuclear demand is growing, uranium demand is growing. It's been in undersupply for a long time. Alligator's got the Samphire project in South Australia and some exploration activity. But before we get into that, I'm going to ask Greg a little bit about his background, both in uranium and in South Australia. Greg?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thanks for the introduction. Look, my background is as a mining engineer originally. I worked on the Olympic Dam project for 11 years. I moved into iron ore overseas. I was in nickel, came back as operations manager in the mining site at Ranger uranium mine. Then I moved into marketing nuclear fuel and uranium for Rio Tinto for a number of years, bauxite alumina marketing, and then came out in the junior field as a founding MD of Toro Energy. We've got the first fully approved uranium project in West Australia, just as a tsunami hit Japan, very unfortunately. Some time in copper companies again before joining Alligator as an NED and now as CEO for about 7 years now. And we've grown Alligator from a pure explorer now to a developing company with an in-situ recovery uranium project in South Australia, which of course has a long history of uranium mining stemming back even back in the 40s, 50s, but more recently with Olympic Dam from the 80s, the Beverley 4 Mile Uranium Complex, the Honeymoon Mine with Boss, and now our project should be hopefully the 6th uranium project to be approved in South Australia.
Well, you've gone through a few things there. I was going to ask you about the jurisdiction and that sort of stuff, but you've already done that. Well, perhaps you can tell us about the Samphire project. When was it discovered? What sort of operation are you talking about?
Yeah. So Samphire was discovered by a company called Uranium SA, led by Russell Gluck back in around 2007. From 2007 to about 2011, they did really good exploration and development work. We've got a resource going, did the early hydrogeological studies, and that was a really good kickstart. So when we acquired the project, of course it went into the doldrums while the uranium price was low for 10 years or more. We acquired the project in 2020, and in 21 got back underground drilling, really emphasising the in-situ recovery resource, the 80-metre deep sands that we're focused on in that area. The first deposit, Blackbush, is well-rounded now. We've got a resource, we've done a scoping study, and we've got a pilot trial about to commence later this year. We're waiting on the lease approval. We've fabricated the pilot plant. That's up on site, and we'll be constructing in the fourth quarter and then operating the pilot trial. The steps from there are we lead into a feasibility study in 25, initial contract offtakes. We've already been talking to utilities for more than 2 years, and there's a lot of interest in new uranium production out of Australia, and particularly because of the geopolitical events that are going on around the world. So certainly it's the right time to bring a project like ours on. I won't be too definitive on timeline, but look, if we go through an approval process, the financing, we could be in commissioning production in late 28, that sort of time period.
You mentioned it's an in-situ recovery process. There are a few of those operating in South Australia, as you said, Beverley, Honeymoon, now, 4 Mile. How does your resource compare in terms of size and grade? I mean, obviously it's going to be permeability will be an issue, but is it big enough to be useful?
Yes, it is. So we've got a starting resource of around 18 million pound, which pretty well, for example, when Beverley started up in 1998, they had about 25 million pound, targeting 1.2 million pound production. 25 years later, they're at 4 million pound and still got a big resource. We'll be starting at 1.2 million pound per year. We've got about a 20 million pound resource. We're expanding it now. And so that's a good start. Because the good thing about in-situ recovery mining is you can generate cash flow for quite cheap capital. And so a company our size of a 200 and 250 million market cap, we can do that. So that's what we're aiming to do. The permeability porosity in our ground is brilliant. It's excellent. We've done all the test work for it. The grade is in line with Boss Energy's project, so it's similar to that. A little bit lower than Beverley 4 Mile, but very eminently mineable. And we've got a 20-kilometre footprint of paleochannels that we've found by ground gravity surveys. We've already found a second satellite deposit which was identified historically that we need to get on and drill more. So we've got expansion potential along with that. So the economics are there on a scoping level. We'll be in feasibility and pilot trial at the end of this year. We've got expandability, and the market's good.
Greg, you mentioned you've had experience in marketing. Uranium's not a London Metal Exchange product. You can't it's not really a visible market for it. There's a spot price which goes up and down, but most of the trading's on long-term contract. But you have a background in that. What's your view? I'm sure it'll be optimistic, but what's your view on uranium and demand? And how do you sell this stuff?
Yeah, well, simply it's built on relationships. So while I was marketing uranium, you visited nuclear utilities both at their nuclear sites plus at conferences to build those relationships. We've been doing the same in Alligator. We have a marketing agent, Kevin Smith, out of New York, who's got, like me, a long background in uranium marketing. And so he's got all the current contacts. We've had, just recently, 2 months ago, 25 meetings with utilities at a conference. We started these sort of meetings 2.5 years ago. So we've got early relationships established. The nuclear utilities will sometimes come out with a request for proposals, and they'll target it to companies. Please submit a tender for uranium supply starting in 4 years' time, running for 5 years with these options, etc. So some will do that, and you can make a bid for that. Others will just start a discussion on an off-market basis with one or two companies to try to firm up future supply. Generally, all deals are done. You do a deal now, first delivery might be 3-4 years, and then run for anywhere from 3 to 7 years. So that's the structure of the system. What indicates to me the strength of this market is there is a much wider range of nuclear utilities that even a startup company like ours is talking to. So the utilities in Europe, which have traditionally bought advanced fuel, let's say enriched uranium product rather than uranium and components, they are now talking uranium because they know there's a real future restriction on supply coming up. No one's in desperate measure. Utilities have their refuelings available, but they do need to be contracting now for right through the end of the decade and into the next decade, and they are. So there is lots of activity out there.
Thanks very much, Greg. Thanks very much for your time. Thanks very much. And uranium story. We didn't get to talk about Alligator's exploration in the Northern Territory, but all the real focus is on the Samphire development. As I said, electricity, nuclear power, Alligator energy. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chris.